Hi, I'm Jeff Greenspan, Managing Director of Financial Modeling Service, and today we're going to talk about creating and using financial models. George Box famously said, "All models are wrong, but some are useful." And though you may not realize it, you use models all the time. The real world is incredibly complex, so we create models in our mind about how the real world operates. For example, I use my I use a model of my wife whenever I buy her a gift, and I know my model needs adjusting when my gift is not well received. Because we make decisions and take actions based on the models that we create, it's critically important that we understand both the strengths and the limitations of models. So, let's get started. The key strength of models and the reason we build them is they help us understand the past and predict the future. A good model allows you to take some set of inputs, typically live data or perhaps historic data, or sometimes just estimates of what we think the data should be, and make a prediction about the future. Weather models are a great example. They look at thousands of data points from thousands of locations to predict the weather. But the real world weather is so complex, we can't predict more than a few days into the future. When we forget about the limitations of financial models, the consequences can be personally or societally disastrous. Personally, we could lose money. We could make a decision that is not accurate. We do this all the time and we quickly forget about it. Societally, the consequences can be worse. The Great Recession of 2008 was triggered by a failure of mortgage backed securities, which were created by a financial model designed to spread the risk of subprime mortgages. The models weren't necessarily wrong, we failed to understand their limitations. There are two sets of limitations that we need to be considered. The first has to do with the model itself. Basically, garbage in, garbage out. Are our inputs any good? We need to use the right inputs if we want to make accurate predictions. If we want to predict the weight of a bucket with sand in it, the density of water as an input doesn't do us any good. Our inputs must be predictive. They also need to be accurate. It is so tempting to jigger a model to produce the answer that you want. This is why it's critical when you use other people's models that you look at them and that you test them and that you ask questions about the assumptions buried within. The second problem is calculations. Are our calculations correct? It's easy to get a formula wrong or to use a statistic or a statistical distribution that is inaccurate. Last, are those statistics and statistical distributions valid? When is the mean more valid than the median? When should we use a normal distribution as opposed to one with a longer tail? You don't have to be a PhD to answer these questions, but it really helps to have some knowledge of probability and statistics if you're going to be making complex models. The second limitation is a bigger concern, and that's us. We as humans are a bucket full of biases, so much so that McKinsey has published a series of articles on debiasing within the business world. You can take a look at Wikipedia if you want. They have a comprehensive list of biases, but I like this one from Visual Capitalist's article on the subject because it focuses on the 18 biases that tend to have a disproportionately large effect on the ways we do business. Do yourself a favor, pause my video now and read through these biases. You will recognize that you too are not immune from some of these biases, maybe all of them. We've talked about the bad, now let's talk about the good. Models can help us typically with two specific objectives, decision making and budgeting or forecasting. I've put together a list of the common types of models that we work with. The first is a pro forma, which is a forward-looking projection for a business that can suggest answers to critical questions like the following. But obviously, your inputs need to be reasonable and defensible. Proformas are typically used in business plans, and anytime a business walks into a bank and asks for a loan, you can be sure that their proformas will be seriously studied and they will be asked a number of questions about the reasonableness and defensibleness of their assumptions. Another model is for merger and acquisitions. These are among the most complex models that we work with. They're used by investment bankers during initial public offerings and leveraged buyouts. DCF, or discounted cash flow models, help investors understand the value of a series of cash flows to them. This is really the only way to understand what the net present value of a project is and whether it should be undertaken. Net worth modeling is critically important, and many financial planners run Monte Carlo models for this type of analysis. My experience is that they're incapable of including non-stock market assets in these models, which make them less informative. I've mentioned Monte Carlo here. Monte Carlo models are amazing. They provide a future probability distribution for some model output, and this can be very informative when the model is well designed. Hold or sell models are typically used for real estate. You've owned it for many years. Are you better off holding it or selling it? And if you hold, should you refinance? Loan modeling. On our site, I've got a great article on picking the best home loan or refi. You should look at it. It can save you thousands of dollars making the right decision on which loan to use when you purchase or refinance any large item like your home. IPO and LBO models, again, very complex, used by investment bankers. And finally, budgeting and forecasting models. What do my personal or business cash flows look like, and what might they look like in the future? And how have they changed over time? These types of questions can help you accumulate wealth over the long period. Financial Modeling Service can help you create a financial model for almost any purpose, or we can serve as a second set of eyes for a model that you've created. A good review will cover the key concerns highlighted earlier in this article. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to hearing from you.